As I prepared this script, my computer froze. I lost much of the work I'd completed just after I wrote the word Facebook. Was it coincidence or something more? This is my rewritten script, and I admit I'm more inclined to consider the possibility that I've been hacked. Even as I rewrote the script, I recognized that the letters on my screen turned up a lot more slowly than usual. Was someone listening? I checked and realized my FaceTime account was open. Very strange.
US social media company Facebook says it has suspended the account of Cambridge Analytica, an American-British data analysis firm hired in 2016 by US President Donald Trump's election campaign, amid reports it collected the personal information of millions of American voters without their permission. It is said the accounts of its parent organisation, Strategic Communication Laboratories, were also suspended, as well as those of University of Cambridge psychologist Alexander Kogan and Christopher Wiley, a Canadian data analytics expert who worked with Kogan. Both Cambridge Analytica and Facebook deny any wrongdoing, but Facebook also faces rising discontent from advertisers and users, with major US advertisers suspending all marketing on the social network. The UK advertisers body said it had a constructive and challenging meeting with the tech giant after it raised concerns over the disclosure. Remarkably, Facebook founder and chief executive Mark Zuckerberg said he expected there were other companies alongside Cambridge Analytica which operated in the same way. His commentary sounded to many like an implied admission of guilt.
How do you feel about Facebook's potential access to your most personal data? And which presents the greater risk to your privacy, governments or Facebook? Simple questions with important answers. We started with the simplest of questions. Should social media be able to sell our information to third parties without the user's permission? We put that question to the public here in Britain. Here's what they told us.
I think without your permission to sell your information is quite shocking, really, isn't it? It's not really on without people's permission. I think with people's permission, it's maybe a different story, but I think, there's a lot of situation where they say they're telling us that they're selling information, but maybe people don't actually know that. So,
absolutely not.
Why is that?
Because it's our data, we have a right to privacy. I actually am on Facebook, and with this recent situation, I've actually been considering whether I want to continue to be on that. I don't like the idea that the U.S. elections were manipulated by getting data on people and then feeding false information.
No, I don't.
Why is that?
I mean, I'm more than happy for the data I choose to go on there, but if it's without my permission, I don't think that's fair. You wouldn't do it with anything else, would you? So, not with social media.
Of course not. No, I don't think they should, no.
Why not?
It's private. I think that's enough, the word private.
No, they shouldn't be able to sell it, no, not at all. It's their personal belongings, really, yeah.
No, they shouldn't sell any information to any third party or any other parties, to be honest, because this is our information and no need to be spreaded anywhere.
Well, of course, the truth is that even though some people might say the best things in life are free, of course, Facebook, Google, Apple, and all others that are collecting our information are not any of those entities that come for nothing. I mean, they have to survive. They have to make a profit. And in the main, they're very profitable. They do that by selling information. There's been no secret about that, using information for targeting purposes, for example, for advertising and so on. They would argue, I'm sure, that actually there is the permission given because they've consented the people to using it. But people, of course, don't read through what they're given permission for. And also, of course, if they want to use social media, there's no choice for them, people, but to agree to those terms. And they kind of expect that people are not going to abuse their permissions, but clearly Facebook and others clearly have.
Absolutely not. Not without my express permission for me to pass on my data and my information. It's one thing to do a deal with, say, Facebook or whoever. It's another thing altogether for them to give my data to other people. Plus, I consider how much information I give this channel. But on the other side, you know, I'm aware of what the risks are because there are no free lunches in life. If Facebook doesn't charge you for being a member, you've got to know that they're monetizing your use of their site one way or another. But I think it's completely unacceptable for them to monetize it in a way which is without my express permission.
The social networking service stole the profile information of 50 million Facebook users in the tech giant's biggest ever data breach, apparently to help them design software to predict and influence voters' choices at the ballot box. How does the public feel about this?
I think it's quite worrying. You know, if you think of our democracy, it's about people being able to make a free, informed choice, and if that's being influenced by selling our data, by people being able to manipulate our data, I think that's quite worrying, actually.
Well, I think it's preying on people a bit, because I mean, people join Facebook in all innocence, in a way. I don't know, maybe they're naive. Maybe that's why I didn't do it. I don't know, because I'm probably a bit suspicious. I actually never signed up for Facebook. I never saw the point of it, to be honest.
Or to sway voters' intention at the ballot box by providing them with false information and completely skewing the debate in favor of one candidate over another. And I don't approve of that. And, you know, Facebook had set up a government policy unit that was supposed to deal with governments and help governments with elections. It wasn't supposed to manipulate elections.
Again, I think that takes away the sort of freedom of speech aspect and this freedom of thinking aspect of it all as well. So, yeah, I don't think that's fair as well.
I think it's wrong. Politics and privacy and people's everyday living should not mix. I don't think it should.
Again, that is wrong. So that's one of the reasons why I don't use Facebook at all. Yeah, I think too much is being put out there. So in some way, people need to be very, very careful. You know.
So I don't personally, I don't accept like my information to be spreaded anywhere.
I think it's wrong, especially as there's been no. I mean, I've got a Facebook account. I've had no email from Facebook apologising and stuff like that. So I certainly think the way they treat their customers isn't the best, really.
Well, it's absolutely astonishing, of course, that whilst most of our mainstream media has been focusing on alleged Russian interference in British and American referendums and elections, and it's only been proved to an extremely small degree. There, at the same time, in the background, and completely ignored until very recently, you've got a British company with links to Israeli and British intelligence services through its former employers of those organisations, actually actively, on a vast scale, using Facebook and other means to mine the information and steal the data of millions of voters and then manipulate and exploit and use that information in an attempt to, as they themselves boast, to influence elections. It's a scandal of absolutely massive proportions, and one which, interestingly, organisations like the BBC, which of course are linked to the British state, have been careful not to highlight.
Lots of people use market research to identify customer personas, consumer profiles, and that sort of thing. But to use it to influence me is to weaponize it to a level that I find completely unacceptable. Moreover, in the case of Cambridge Analytica, it only started off with a few thousand users whose information they mined, but this very quickly ramped up and scaled up to 50 million because they weren't just taking their information, they were taking their friends' information. Now, I don't have the authority to allow total strangers to have access or information to the information of my friends. It's completely unacceptable.
What does the public think about analysis firms collecting information to be used in political campaigning?
there have always been firms that have collected data to influence political campaigns. You know, people need to understand the electorate, people need to understand, politicians need to understand their electorate, but this does seem to be on a different sort of level.
I think what right do they have to do that? I mean, Facebook basically is a platform for advertising, and I don't like the fact that they use data on, how old I am or how I voted in the past or whether I buy a pair of shoes or not, and then try to extrapolate whether I'm on one side of a candidate or, supporting one candidate or another. They have no right to that information, and I think that they need to be restricting it, and they haven't. They said they were going to do this, and they haven't done it. And I frankly feel that they need to be held accountable for this.
I think, again, if it's influencing, I think that's wrong. But the general aspects of what they do, I think, is very good. But yeah, if it's to influence something, then that's, again, taking away from the individual who's supposed to be voting to affect a proposition.
Of course it's wrong. I don't think that was the intention to sell data and to use data for that reason.
I think it's fine. It's not that bad, to be honest, because I know in Arab countries and that is not that bad. But here, I think I do trust the political elections and that.
I don't think any data should be collected without you knowing about it, but unfortunately, it does go on. So.
Of course, we can expect campaigning groups to get their best advantage, to try and exploit, for example, marginal seats, where actually only a very few voters can have an influence way beyond their numbers. So that isn't unexpected. But what's different here is the actual theft, the manipulation of people's data, and to target them in a way that they don't even know they're being targeted with propaganda. And of course, that is the essence of good propaganda. And it's not just in American elections, it's not just in a British referendum, it's in other parts of the world where British foreign policy is interfering in the electoral or political processes of other countries and regions. For example, with the Cambridge Analytica parent company story, we're talking about the use of data to target countries such as Moldova, such as Georgia, such as Ukraine, all, of course, favouring British political interests, and all unannounced at the same time that we are criticising Russia and other countries for interfering in our elections.
Market research is one thing, but what Cambridge Analytica was seeking to do is more on the edge, verges on psychological, what they call PSYOPs, psychological warfare programs. And these are traditionally used by governments to sway public opinion and so on. It's interesting, they were working on this model that culture is driven by individual beliefs. So if you want to influence political outcomes, you must first change the mindset of the individual. I find this extremely creepy. I find it's the covertness of this thing that is awful. I choose to know what I think. It's for the politician to come up with their pitch, not for the politician to manipulate me into liking what they want.
Facebook grabbed profile information from 50 million Facebook users in the tech giant's biggest ever data breach. Cambridge Analytica was given $15 million by US billionaire and Republican Party donor Robert Mercer. Following these revelations, the company's market value dropped over $100 billion in 10 days, suggesting many voters felt unhappy about the discovery of this electronic snooping. It's worth noting that Facebook has over 1 billion active users, and 700,000 new members join the social networking website every day, increasing the extent to which Facebook can snoop on the human race.
Former CIA Director Michael Hayden has said that the social networking website Facebook has surpassed governments in terms of invading privacy and presenting a greater privacy risk than those authorities. What does the public think?
Yeah, we need to be concerned about what's happening in this situation, don't we? But also, we need to, it's a balance between protecting people and also allowing people to use social media for the reasons they want to use it for.
We'd hope that we elect them and they do what we want them to do, but Facebook's an independent, I don't know. probably more potentially dangerous.
Both. I think they both, and I would say governments have a role to play here. So completely blaming it on Facebook. I mean, this is where technology has gotten ahead of regulation. I am in favor of free speech, but I'm not in favor of using people's data to manipulate elections, and that is what Facebook has done through Cambridge Analytica. And I'm, having to live with that situation, I'm telling you, I'm not very happy with it.
Well, that's it. I suppose the thing is, I do like Facebook. I use it all the time. Government or Facebook? I suppose if Facebook is selling it to the government, then Facebook. I'd say, yeah.
Why do you say that?
Well, because the governments are collecting the data, so they need to get the data from somewhere. So if Facebook are willing to give it to them, then they're the bad people for giving it to them.
I think government, really. Yeah. I mean, as you said, that they use that to gain points or whatever. And I think the government does the same kind of thing, really. Yeah.
But we tend to give the data to sites like Facebook.
You tend to give the data to Facebook. Well, the government needs to clap down on it. Somebody needs to be saying something about it and stopping that kind of issue. But it's not done.
I think he is right, to be honest, because all social media at the moment, there's no regulations or something that control it, to be honest, and so it's becoming like more than spy, to be honest, for other governments or for other social medias, or anyone need any information actually can be spread. So anyone need any others parties or any other countries need any information, they can get it from the social media, which is very bad for us. So we don't feel secure, to be honest.
Probably is, because the amount of information the government collects about you is limited. Social media, it's got people's life on it, so they know a lot more about you than the government does. So I do agree with that, yeah.
Those who have raised concerns about the sheer amount of personal data that organisations like Facebook, Google, Apple, Microsoft all have on us as individuals around the world, those concerns are well placed. Also, of course, let's not forget that this isn't as an alternative to what government holds on us, because regardless of what those organisations say, they are well capable of being hacked, or even being forced by court order, or even by more subtle means of handing over or having that information intercepted by government agencies. And so really we've got a situation now where every single aspect of people's lives that they have disclosed, perhaps unwittingly, through their phones and through their apps on the computers and elsewhere, is now actually known. That most intimate personal details, including politics, perhaps relationship matters, and many, many other aspects, is now all well known to these companies, and therefore also, of course, to the governments within which those companies' jurisdiction lies.
Before I did this interview, I went on Google to see the information they had on me. It was staggering. Google knows my movements. Because I've got satellite tagging on. It knows when I make phone calls, where to, which towers these calls are going from. It holds an incredible amount of information about my personal life, the pictures that I like, and so does Facebook. The government doesn't have that kind of information on me. Nobody else has that kind of information on me, which is all the more reason why I must control who has access to that information. Now, if it goes to a social media platform and that social media platform sells it or shares it with somebody else without my express information, whoever's got that has got more information on me than the government that I voted into power. I didn't vote the person who's getting this information into power.
Is the public more reluctant to share information on social media regarding their personal life after this scandal? And would they trust Facebook again?
Me personally, I've left Facebook.
Why did you leave?
I think on one level, social media, it ends up being too big a part of your life. We should be living in the real world, connecting with people face to face. But this whole situation has definitely worried me.
Absolutely. I've ticked off all the privacy settings. I'm even afraid to say like or not like something on Facebook. So I'm really considering dropping out of Facebook. I've dropped myself off something called LinkedIn. I don't belong to Twitter. I think they're invading our privacy much more than we even realize.
I don't think my information's that interesting. You know, when I go on a cycle ride or go for a walk or take my kids out, I don't think it's really going to help anything or affect anything really from my side. And I mainly use it for recording memories I want to keep anyway. So, yeah, no, it wouldn't affect me.
I don't share personal data on network, if intentionally anyway. But of course, you don't know exactly what to do with it, with the most innocent things that you put on there, with good intentions. So you don't know. So yes, maybe I share it. I don't know, but it's without my permission.
Yeah, it's a way of life now. People just tend to do it. There's too much stuff on Facebook, you know, and I don't think people are getting it because it's the young people, and they're just not getting it. They're really not. Yeah, so that's why I stay away from it.
No, really. I don't really share my right information, to be honest, nowadays, because I don't trust the social media nowadays.
Yes, but a lot of social media, such as Facebook, makes it quite difficult for you. They keep changing the controls and stuff like that, your privacy settings. So unless you're checking it all the time, stuff is public that might not have been public before and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I think about that.
It was exactly these kind of privacy concerns that led many people, including myself, for example. I abandoned using Facebook. I stopped using Facebook in 2013 purely because of privacy concerns that arose in many areas. And so these privacy concerns are not particularly new, but what is new is I think the extent to which people are aware of them and the sheer volume of data, the mass trawling of data, of people's personal data that is taking place. I think it's the extent to which it's been taking place that have caught people by surprise. If you, I use Twitter, for example. I use Twitter, but I would never use it for personal communication and for as a social network. If you use social network, you are disclosing, perhaps even without knowing it yourself, personal information about yourself, which is then going to be used to target you in a way you may not recognize or understand in terms of political and other types of advertising. Indeed, that is the very reason, as far as the business model of these social networks is concerned, that's the very reason for those networks' existence. Not to provide a social platform, to make profit.
I think that there's been a huge hit in trust. In business, you measure trust by your stock value. Social media, Facebook's stock has plunged by something like 18%. In 2 days, 50 billion got wiped off its share price. That is business's way of telling you, we don't like you, we don't trust you, we don't like the way you're doing business. So yes, it's taken a massive hit to its reputation. The problem with reputations is it takes a nanosecond to destroy and it takes ages to rebuild. So the new algorithms they're writing, the new protections they're putting in place and so on and so forth, a lot of people are going to go, yes, right. But they will really feel it's too little and too late. Finally, it's all the little prompts that Facebook actually prompts people to share their personal information with people, with other people. That is actually in the light of the fact that they're sharing this information they're asking for from me with other people makes it all the more creepy. It's going to take a while for them to get their trust back.
Former CIA Director Michael Hayden, who also directed the National Security Agency, said people like Zuckerberg will play an increasingly decisive role in protecting personal information based on the privacy rules of their software. Your habits are all geared to protecting privacy against the government, because that was always the traditional threat, he said. That is no longer the pattern. It is the private sector. We are going through a cultural adjustment.
But maybe we don't care if Facebook steals our personal data, contacts, and even our pictures. Or maybe we feel that if we speak out, we'll be targeted for even more data intrusions into our personal lives. Whatever your view, social media is posing a great threat to your personal privacy. At least now we know that Big Brother has a website and a name. The website is Facebook and the name is Mark Zuckerberg.